A very good morning and a warm welcome to this week's edition of The Dialogue. My name is Prince Apollo. The Dialogue is an analysis of weekly events, and we dig deep into the events and interrogate the circumstances, but also the experts give us their experiences and opinions on those pertinent matters. Welcome once again. You can be part of this discussion by sending your comments and observations. We really thank our viewers, those who do not miss the show, regards to Mr. Mirisera in Chikagati, Rubologota, and all other viewers watching across the world. A very eventful week we have had. We had the Heroes Day, we had the budget reading, and many events we'll be talking about. Of course, the panel is set. Richard Baguma is a communication expert. He will be giving us his opinions. Jen Nalunga, the country director for Siatini, has joined us this morning. We'll be joined by Patrick, an economist and a policy analyst. We miss out on the usual suspect, Dr. Gerard Were Wansara. He's committed somewhere, but he's following. Thank you so much, our viewers. Let me introduce Richard Baguma, but before that, we will specifically look at the 72 trillion ambitious budget that was read to Ugandans during the course of this week. Looking at the assurances from His Excellency the President through the Minister for Finance and Economic Planning, assuring Ugandans that the economy is growing, and the economy is projected to grow actually bigger and bigger following the full recovery of the economy. It was a big statement, and of course we'll dig into the few issues that were raised in the budget, but of course the big question will be around the increment on that budget and how this budget will be funded. Richard Baguma, quickly speak to our viewers, but I must confess I am really grateful to always have you on this show.
And now for me, thank you. I appreciate your gratitude. Now for me, my gratitude as always first goes to God.
Yeah, true.
It is God who enables us to be here.
Good.
Gives us free oxygen and all the blood and things. So thank you, Lord, for bringing us here. I also thank the viewers, like you said, the ones who we know, who we don't know, who communicate to us, and make this worthwhile.
Wow.
Yes, and as always, you guys in the production team. It's nice to be here this morning, post-budget, but I'm also happy to see Jane after quite a while.
Wow.
Yes.
She has been flying.
Yeah, she's been flying, and so I think she's more in the air than on the ground.
I'm almost becoming a bird.
But yeah, it's nice to be here.
Wow, you look good in yellow, blue, and red.
I actually feel good.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm feeling good today.
Okay, thank you so much, Richard. Jen Nalunga, it's a pleasure having you back. Welcome from those countries abroad.
Okay, thank you so much, Apollo, and thanks the whole team for having me here. And good morning, our viewers. I want to add on to what Richard has said, to thank God.
Yeah.
You know, we are God's miracle. We see miracles every day. We are here. Richard says, I'm feeling good. What more do you want?
Wow.
You know? So we thank God for that.
Good.
And for all the journey mercies wherever we go. I will talk about those journeys where I go always, because I would like to be here always, but I travel. And I will talk about it and how it's important for us to know where you know, what's happening
later in the program.
later in the program.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jane. Jane is an economist and the country director for Seatini Uganda. Seatini Uganda is an NGO?
It's an NGO, a think tank. We work on economic issues, economic policies, and economy includes agriculture, trade, investment, mineral development, everything which brings in money. But we want to look at what kind of policies can government put in place to enable Ugandans to be happy, to earn a living, to live in dignity, but also for government also to earn as a government. And we look at these policies, not just the Ugandan policies, because we are globalized. The entire world is
it's a global village.
And you find that policies which are made in Washington, because that's where IMF World Bank sits, they impact on us.
Sure.
Sometimes we ask our government, why don't you do this? Why yet the policy is already made in Washington and you can't change it. Policies which are made in Geneva, I usually go to Geneva. Geneva, we have the World Trade Organization.
That is Switzerland?
Switzerland. That's the headquarters of the World Trade Organization. Some of the trade policies we see here are negotiated there. And the World Trade Organization has a system. When you are not there, you have said yes. If you don't say no there, you have said yes. So again, we have to be mindful what's going on. We are also part of the regional East African economic bloc in Arusha, and the laws are made there. For example, our traders have been fighting around the taxes on clothes, the 35%. Yet they agreed in Arusha that as a region we have to produce our own clothes. That means let us put a tax, increase the tax because it was 25. Let us increase the tax
to boost local production.
So it's done there. And now, lastly, we are part of Africa. The 55 countries of 55, apart from Eritrea said I'm not joining. So they are part of the Continental Free Trade area. And they have negotiated a Continental Free Trade area where goods can be able to move. It's negotiated there. And they reduced a number of taxes on products so that products can be able to move. So we have to be mindful when we are talking about growing the economy, getting out of poverty, to look at that broader overview, because that's where we get the markets. But getting those markets will be determined by what kind of policies have been put in place.
Thank you so much, Jen. Thank you so much, our viewers. Those kind of policies Jen is talking about include the passing and reading of the national budget, and that is what we start with. Of course, the budget was read out, and many Ugandans know what is in the projections for the budget of the next year. But quickly, Jane, I will ask you to give us your highlight of this budget.
I think the biggest highlight, because a budget is about income and expenditure. And sometimes we spend a lot of time looking at how is the cake?
It has been shared.
How is the cake shared out? But we need also to be mindful about where is the money coming from. And this is very, very important, where the money is coming from, because sometimes you need to take that money back. So Apollo, you talked about the 72 trillion budget. Almost 45% of that budget is coming from loans. And we need to pay back the loans. And for me, I want to be as simple as possible when we are talking about the budget. And that's where I thought the way the budget is being read. When you listen to, I congratulate Honorable Kasaija, the way he read. For somebody to do that reading for 2 hours, and with a lot of humor
And vigor.
It isn't easy. Richard, can you do it?
At his age especially.
Especially at his age. But if I become finance minister, I will do it.
You do it?
Yeah,
Why?
just give me being finance minister.
What will change?
I will just increase the figure.
The figure automatically. Yeah, but I congratulate
Honorable
Matia Kasaija. But my proposal really would be, if we want Ugandans to follow, to be part of the budget reading, it has to be, the language has to go down a little bit because put our almost 80%, 70% of our Ugandans, were they able to listen
and understand and comprehend. So we need an abridged, because the reading was for Parliament, but Parliament already have that document. They already have it. So if we get an abridged copy and reading of the budget, giving highlights. This one is like this. That one, this one, this is what we are going to do. Instead of the many big words, appropriation, what, you know. So I think it's a good proposal, a good idea.
It's just a good proposal. That
breaking the budget down into a format and context that the ordinary person can understand.
Instead of alienating that one.
Excise duty.
They just that one is for the land people. It's their budget. It's their money. Yet you want to bring people closer to government.
Sure.
No. So that's one. So I was saying that the budget, where it's coming from, that most of the money is coming from loans.
Yeah.
The money which is coming from domestic taxes, I think was 32 trillion. The rest are loans. And I think here, and we need to discuss this more, what are the implications? The implication is that we need to pay back this money. We have to service the loans. And that's why...
But Jane, the ministry, the government made a commitment during the formulation of this budget that in the next financial year, they will limit on borrowing.
But that was what was said also. That was what was said in the other budget. And we pray to God that we'll be here in the next budget next year. It will be the same, but it will be the same problem. Government will continue borrowing. Why? You see, Honorable Kasaija was in South Korea. He got a loan, isn't it? 500 million, another loan. And then, because we are borrowing locally on the domestic market, about how many trillions, a lot of trillions. And the implication there is that the interest rates are high. You see? And when you look at the money which we are putting in investment in the real economy, it's very little money. We can't sustain we can't get enough resources to finance our development. And we are repaying the loan. So that means for the time being, government has to borrow. But for me, what I think we need to concentrate on is how to get out of this debt trap. Because for us as civil society, we are saying we are in a debt trap. If you are borrowing here to pay there, in fact, government was saying for them that debt is sustainable. And they give figures, GDP, what. But we need to have other measures of sustainability of our debt. And I go back to the household, to an individual. Apollo, if you have borrowed money and you are continuing to borrow to be able to service even your
Is that what is
interest.
called debt rollover?
The debt rollover, yes. We are rolling over debt, haven't paid, we roll it over. But with increased terms of payment, you roll it over. But you are continuing paying, you know. And what you are spending on debt repayment and servicing is more than you are spending in your agriculture, your trade, your human capital development, on health, on water. Is that sustainable? So again, what I'm asking government, that let us look at deeper the parameters of sustainability.
Okay.
Because it's also important that if you know that my debt is is not sustainable, then you put in place measures, very stringent measures. One, to be able to ensure that the debt you are acquiring is used optimally. But now we are not even using optimally the loans we get.
Oh, yeah.
You see, money is on commitment. Those are loans which we get, which you haven't used. Then you wonder, were you ready? Why did you get that loan? So there are so many leakages. But the moment you say there is a problem, that's the beginning of getting solutions.
Wow, thank you, Jane. And you say the highlights of this budget. One, the public debt. Two, the financing of this budget, the sources of finances for this budget. And three, public debt, financing of the budget, and what else? The effectiveness.
The effectiveness of, but I also look at later where this money is going.
Thank you. Richard, you had Matia Kasaija read out 72.136 trillion budget, but I also looked at the budgets of other countries around us in the region. Kenya read out a budget of 121 Uganda shillings trillions. Good, Kenya is a bigger economy there compared to the 72 of Uganda. I look at the budget that was read out by the Tanzanian government, 70.2 trillion. 70.2 trillion in Ugandan shillings. 2 trillion is less of what we read in Uganda, or we came up with is the next financial year. Start from there. What could be your highlights of this budget that was read out this week?
There are many things I just don't comprehend. So first of all, the fact that, you know, the budget was read and it is it projects a very positive outlook and, you know, builds a lot of hope. The reader himself and his boss said, I have nothing useful to add. He received a standing ovation. The reader, you know, was a nice aura in itself around that. And sometimes with the World Health Organization telling us that 1.4 million of us adult Ugandans.
Yes.
It says 1.4 million adult Ugandans. And you know, we are not too many adults have mental health issues. Sometimes you need to hear some positive news. Whether the positive news is anything to go by. Now, you see, Apple, I have still not understood how we went from 58 trillion to 72. For me, that I haven't comprehended. So I hope the economists can help me.
Coming.
I hope the economists can help me comprehend this. So we had a 58 trillion budget proposed. Even that one, we were only financing 31 trillion or so.
From domestic.
Yeah, from our incomes.
Yeah.
And then we go to 78. So that's still for me, I need to be advised those other trillions. And the second thing, you made a comparative narrative with our neighbors in Kenya and Tanzania. You see, to have an idea of the Kenyan economy in comparison to ours, you just look at how many Kenyan shillings, how many, one Kenyan shilling, how many Ugandan shillings do you need to have to buy one Kenyan shilling? Yes.
Is it around 28?
About 28. Yes. So that gives you an idea of the size, of the power of the economies. So the difference, the 50 trillion difference might mask. Then let's go to the Tanzanian economy and our economy. And we see what has been the performance of the Tanzanian economy, what is the performance in comparison to ours. And then we have, so the language that Jane was talking about, in which these things are packaged, camouflages the undercurrents. Yes, it camouflages the undercurrents, and so you go away.
Could that be deliberate?
For me, I see traditionally this is how budgets are read.
Oh.
So whether the deliberateness came from historical for the people who are in power to deal with the ones they lead, maybe. But this is what I have seen, how budgets are read all around. It is the same nomenclature, the same diction, the same. But when you talk about the budget, in my view, you are actually talking about the pockets of an everyday person. That's what you're dealing with. So when we used to be in the media, what we would do highlight, we would just say, these are the price increases. Yeah, and those would be our headlines. So we just go the budget and we don't bother people with the trillions and what. And you probably have heard me talk to the media about corruption. And you see, when you talk in trillions, it is above the average mind. So people don't relate to it. Yes, that's when every time I would get to a training of journalists, when I'm going to, I say, come and write here. You pick one of you and come and write here a trillion in figures.
In Uganda,
and they usually write Obutabarika. Yes. So it's not relatable. But so what has gone up? You say fuel has gone up. It means your transport fare will go up. That's what it means. The price of kerosene has gone up. So that fuel which you go to buy to use to cook has gone up. This is how we would do the budget, so that people can understand that this one has reduced. Yeah, and those are, so the budget can be understood a lot more easily, in my view, in those terms. So I have not understood the increment in the budget. I'm still struggling with it. Maybe it will be clearer to me as we go on. I also have not clearly, I'm unconvinced that we can raise 72 trillion. First of all, I'm unconvinced that we can raise 31 point something trillion from our domestic resources. The way we are now, I am unconvinced. And when you look at the last 5 years, we have missed our targets for income projections. For the last 5 years, we have missed. What is the magic that is going to change that now?
I will again ask Jen to come in, because like I said in the beginning, the Minister for Finance told us that the economy has fully recovered. I think that's one benchmark from which he and Mr. President thinks that possibly next year things will be better. Number two, I also looked at another report here. The European Union and World Bank expressed their satisfaction with the positive results registered over the past financial year, where Uganda registered an impressive 6% growth. So don't you think possibly that's how President Museveni and the Minister Kasaija draw their courage
That is
to
supposed
think that possibly things will be better next year and
Apple.
other years?
Apple. We have talked about those issues, and that's why I said the economists can tell me. I've had GDP, that people's money has increased, the GDP has grown by 6%, and so people are richer. But you see, we live this life. It is the life we live. So, the economy, the way things are calculated, it can be very grossy. And very nice. I don't dispute that. That is not the way things are calculated. They are very good. The economy is growing very rapidly. Perhaps the fastest growing in the world. Whatever. But you see, when that does not translate to the everyday, then that's where I have a challenge. That's where I have the challenge that the growth, that the wonderful growth does not get translated into the growth of the individuals. That is where I have the... So when you say that, for example, you have a widening, and the same reports also, that you have a widening income gap, that you have a very small, a very tiny 1% was it, they said, which is very wealthy, middle class. No, upper class, not even middle. And you have this one. So that's where, for me, I said the budget can be a wonderful document, and we need it because we don't want all to be stressed all the time and have more mental health people. But we need those translations to be done. Otherwise, we'll be committing suicide continuously. Yeah.
All right, Jen, I will quickly ask you to intervene and interject on the statement from Matia Kasaija, Honorable, that the economy has fully recovered, and the World Bank and EU saying that the economy, Uganda's economy, is actually its growth is impressive.
I want to go again to, I agree entirely with Richard. You know, when we talk about growth, 6%, 7%, sometimes, you know, some people say figures don't lie. But it depends on how you have got those figures. They tell us on the PPP methodology we are here, but when you use this method, you are somewhere else. Those are just figures. And I don't dispute the fact that maybe the economy has grown because GDP doesn't translate into people having jobs, by the way. There is a jobless growth when it depends on what kind of sectors are growing. In Uganda, banks are making money. Banks are making money, but banks, how many jobs are they providing? And most of our banks are foreign banks. Where are they taking the money? But that's part of GDP, that's part of development, isn't it? GDP growth. Yeah, the country is growing, but all this money is going out. Banks are collecting money, they make a killing, they lend government more money, they get more money, they post profits. It's GDP growth. So we need to ask, what kind of growth are we looking at? Jobless growth. You see? Then, when you look at the industries, they talked about industries. Oh, we have so many industrial parks, so many industries. When you look at those industries, they are in EPZs, economic processing zones. Sometimes they have tax holidays, but most of them, they are assembling. They assemble. We are not manufacturing, they are assembling. Maybe in Kapeka where we do tiles, but those are few industries. So we need also to look at what kind of industrial model do we want? A model which can be able to have backward linkages, that people are producing things, we are packaging them, we are branding them, we are selling them, and there are jobs across that value chain. Jobs we don't have that. So if we have an industry which is assembling, that's growth,
Wow.
isn't it? But growth without employment, growth without backward linkages. Again, we need to think around that. So we are looking at a growth, a kind of growth which can be able to distribute the benefits, like Richard is
Yeah,
saying,
one time somebody told me that as they talk about income per capita, they assume that that me I earn the same amount as
of
Sudir
course,
Rupereria.
yeah, exactly. You know, that's why such figures, they give a general picture, but like in Uganda, there is a very high inequality. The poor, the rich have reached not middle class, you know, upper class, you know, they are in a developed world. Then we have these people who still have jiggers. You know, that's where we are, that inequality. And if we are to move as a country, we need to reduce that inequality by creating decent jobs, ensuring that whatever we do, we add value, and people get an income, and people can be able to live in dignity. That's why you go to countries like the Scandinavian countries. Not everybody is rich, but people are
happy.
happy. You can't know who is rich and who is poor, you know, because everybody has the basics. You can be able to have a decent house.
Honorable Mate Kasaija made a statement in his budget speech. Uganda has moved from low to medium human development. Doesn't that, does that reflect what you see on the ground?
You know, it's difficult to say when somebody says that's where you are. You know, these things, this debate.
And even President Museveni during the State of the Nation address also emphasized it again, that we are already in the lower middle income.
Yeah. But we need to look at the reality on the ground. Because when you see it, the figures, like I have said, the figures, and you say, Papa, this one PPP method, add this, add that, subtract, we are there, you know? And we can be there, and we can be anywhere.
But what?
Those of you who have seen auditors we sit and say, okay, bring that one, don't add that one was an expenditure, put it there. You come up with very good report and you say we are there. But when you look at the reality on the ground,
it's different.
We need to be candid and true to ourselves.
Thank you.
Are we really there?
Thank you so much, our viewers, and it is the dialogue. I am pleased to introduce Patrick Katabazi Chichoncho, and Patrick is an economist but also a policy analyst. Patrick, I'm pleased to have you on the dialogue once again.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. Good morning, colleagues, and good morning to our viewers and listeners.
Quickly, Patrick, what Jane and Richard have been talking about is that what is read out during the budget speech does not reflect exactly what is on the ground. I want to get your opinion on that. Could these figures and the nomenclature used be deceptive?
Well, I found the tone very, very harsh on the figures, on the budget, particularly Richard. Now I'm trying to figure out which tone I should...
No, I was actually waiting for you. I kept telling them that I was hoping the economist was here to help me break down some of these things.
So I'm not sure whether I should join them or whether... So, but the important points made here is that, number one, that the numbers in the budget, all round numbers, from revenue targets to debts to proposed expenditure And also the other economic development indicators should mirror what is happening on the ground. I think that's a very, very important point. But also, what I would like to say is that growth and development are processes. They're not one-day processes. And I have often said that growth and development can be compared to movement from a glowing splint. I mean, you're at home, you don't have, it is dark, and you want light. So you start from the glowing splint, from there you graduate into a lantern, tadova. From there you graduate to a lamp, and then from a lamp to electricity. Now, it's a very long journey on that line, but it is a positive journey to growth at some stage, and when you start putting your hand on a switch to get light, now you are closer to development. And also countries behave like that. And what I can only say, looking at the numbers, is that where we are today is better than where we have come from. And for me, that is a starting point. So we need then to evaluate exactly where we are and where we seek to be, where we are going, and perhaps where we ought
to be
going. And for me, that is the debate that we should have. You recall that in the previous budgets, about 5 years ago, we were collecting about 15 trillion. We went to 20. Now, before the numbers for this month comes in, we at 27 trillion.
And we project to collect 30.
And we collect to 29 point. So before these numbers come in, we have a deficit of 1.9 trillion. So, but you can see that is very close. Our target for next financial year is going to be 32 trillion. So by and large, in as far as collecting resources to finance the budget is concerned, we are on a positive trend. The challenge, again, is who are these guys who are paying the taxes, and what impact are the taxes going to have on the overall economy? Are we overtaxing simply to finance the budget, or we are taxing to get resources to finance the budget, but also to allow enterprises thrive so that many enterprises can sprout up, many people can be very innovative, and naturally the tax base expands? That will also be debate when you start talking about
In your
numbers.
opinion, what do you see?
Yes, of course, in my opinion, is that URI has become more aggressive than it used to be. And there are very many cases where I've had where business enterprises are closing down. And that is not what you would wish to have in a country that has a very low tax base. And I have said on this show before, and I want to repeat again, is that the URA should not only be preoccupied with milking business enterprises, but should also make a provision for development support services. So that before you close this business down for non-compliance, what effort have you put in to ensure that you grow with this taxpayer from an informal business person to that person who can ably report on his business or her business dealings for where you are assessing taxes? This whole business of coming and putting penalties on the system. You know, now these days when you open a company, before you get a bank account, you must have a TIN. And once you put a TIN, the next morning you get an assessment from URA. So there has to be a deliberate policy from the URA side where the institution will be part and parcel of the growth of business enterprises in Uganda. If that is not going to be the case, then we are going to start seeing the tax body being a killer of the businesses rather than being a promoter of the business. And that is counterproductive in our quest to have an expanded tax base.
Wow.
Now, we are also seeing the budgets growing. And as you can see, we've been having our budgets moving from 12 trillion to 20 to 34, now to 48, the previous financial year, now this financial year to 52, now to 72. Of course, it is a big story in between. And some of the things we don't agree. For example, we have stated that the budget process for this financial year we are talking about is the most shambolic budget process that I personally has ever seen as a person who worked
Really?
in the parliamentary budget office for 8 years. I've never seen anything like this before, where you bring a corrigenda that is almost equal to the budget.
On the last day?
Because you see, you have a budget, you are growing to 52 trillion, 54, 58, 72. The word corrigenda, or corrigendum really, is an English word that talks about correction, an instrument that you can use to correct errors. So if you come to me and you say that the errors that you are seeking to correct are equivalent to 18.5 trillion, that certainly cannot be.
So you are equally
So by doing actually so, you have created a budget
like
in the other budget. Because
disturbed.
remember, the other instruments at that, the other figures at that point have been approved. They have been approved in the National Budget Framework paper. They have a certificate of from
Financial
NPA.
implication.
They have a certificate from Equal Opportunities Commission for Gender and Equity. So they have passed through all these processes, and then you bring another whopping 18.5 trillion. Superimpose it on this one.
Was it 18 or 14?
And you remember it started from 54.
Oh yeah, to 58.
You get? So now you create another budget and say it is a corrigenda. That is not acceptable. And of course, worst of all, and when the Parliament starts seeing a coordinated, practice, then it becomes an opportunity for them to put their hands into that. And it is not surprising. It happened last year, I think they learned. Now this has happened on a grand scale, where these guys have gone into the budget and started picking money from one to the other and to the other without regard to the core principles and assumptions that underpin the creation or the construction of the budget.
Wow.
And that is why the Treasury is reporting that the MPs distorted the 750 million. My thinking is that is what they have been able to see, because that money, perhaps the chunk of it, relates to Treasury operations, and that's why they can able see it. So what about those other cuts that they have not been able to see? And what is so sad again in this particular thing is that you still have pro-poor items in the budget.
Like what?
That have been cut.
Oh.
You have the social assistance grants for
unfunded
empowerment,
priorities.
the money for older persons, which was only 121 billion, and they cut 20 billion, and they have left the poor old persons with 100. They had said those who are not yet 80 but are in production or they are active, that they could get some small facility to help them. They only needed 5. They only had 5 billion in the budget, and they cut 2. They have 3. Persons with disabilities, they have a small budget for their grants is only 15, and they gave them 8. I can go on and on and on. So you find people going an extra mile to cut budget for Treasury operations, which money is very critical for assisting government to meet its debt obligations, but they cannot even allocate it to the poorest of the poorest, the vulnerable of the vulnerable. And I think if Parliament is not handled with an iron hand as regards to planning and budgeting, we are in trouble, because the law, what they are doing, the law and the principles governing the entire budget process do not allow them to alter the nature.
But
of the
Patrick,
budget.
why do you fault Parliament when actually the call agenda came from the Minister of Finance? I'm talking about the influence. There is external influence directly to Parliament. You
Yes,
are aware of
there's
that?
a bit of that. You see what parliaments do, and all over the world, you might have you read and see in the news. Parliaments negotiate on behalf of their people. Parliaments and executive, they have the power. They can refuse to pass the budget
Yeah, true.
unless the executive has made a provision for this and this. But they don't have the power to change the infrastructure, or rather to change the architectural setup of the budget, to create their own budget. Because then otherwise, what would be the function of the executive?
Actually.
Budget belongs to the executive. For them, on behalf of the people, like the ones that I've been reading for you, children, women, youth, older persons, they should be the ones saying, yes, Mr. Executive, we are not passing this budget. We are not allowing it to move past the budget committee stage because our people have not been given provision. Health has not been given adequate resources, but not to call ministers and say, you know what, if we give you this budget, we want this kind of thing. That, I'm happy about the president's message regarding that, and I think that is the way to go. That's the best way of correcting the excesses that are happening in a budgeting process.
That's the biggest setback of this parliament, I think, what we saw. But Patrick, in just 1, 2, 3 minutes before we go for a break, talk about the performance of the economy and in relation to what was communicated in the budget speech, that the economy is doing well, and then briefly talk about the opportunities that you see in this budget for the economy to grow big and better.
Yes, the numbers are telling us that we are growing at 6%. Our GDP and our aspiration for next financial year is 7. Quite ambitious, but that's what the numbers are saying. As to whether that is relating with what is happening in my pocket, at your household, that is a big debate that we can have another time. Now, what is in this budget that we think is good for the private sector, for example? The Uganda Development Bank is being given an additional 50
UDB.
billion to support private sector enterprises with credit lines. And this is, of course, in top of the other huge capitalization that has been going on over the years. There has been the small and medium-sized recovery program, post-COVID recovery program. That fund had attracted 100 billion, but we heard from the budget speech that only 18 billion of that has been utilized because on account of very stringent, I think, terms, and the minister was proposing to relax terms so that the business persons can, can benefit. And I hope they actually do so, because you know that most of the businesses struggled, and if there was a facility that was set up to assist them, then it should actually work. So for me, that's a positive note that they have acknowledged that the setup had mistakes. So if they can correct them, that would be very good for the business sector.
In your estimation,
are
you optimistic it will get better?
I mean, since they have already acknowledged there is a problem of uptake, money is there in the banks, and it is not being utilized because of the stringent requirements. Now government has acknowledged that there was a problem, and now they want to correct the mistake so that now the 100 billion, which is now left, is 72 billion, can also be used by the deserving people.
Okay.
So we have, of course, focus on tourism and the investments that have been made in tourism. You have also budgets that relate to Emyoga, skilling and others, with some small money for Juakali as well. The government still thinks that parish development model
Will
work, and they are injecting another 1 trillion.
1 trillion.
Yes, again. And we have a stable environment for businesses, for big businesses who want to go and get money from the banks. They can still be able to do so. So in terms of the private sector development, I think there are some good proposals in the budget that we think if they can be taken advantage of, then it will help some business persons. Okay. The only problem that again I'm seeing happening in our economy is that most of the businesses tend to be foreign oriented. Our preference and our support tends again to favor non-indigenous, in my view, business enterprises in terms of waivers, in terms of land giveaways, in terms of assistance here and there. And that, in a way, undermines the growth of the local innovations and entrepreneurships. And then for me, that needs to change. An investor is anybody like you and me. It doesn't have to be a foreign person. And that's why you see a business enterprise from abroad comes, in a little while it is given land. In a little while, before they even start producing, they now start selling. They start selling land. Can you imagine? Or they want to use that land and start getting loans.
Really?
That is very embarrassing. So we have to do that. Now, I want to make something which is not related to the business environment that I might forget. We need to clean the non-wage budget for this country. If we don't, we're in trouble. We have 167 billion, which is for donations.
Whoa.
That can build how many schools?
Quite a number.
We don't have any regulations for donations, or guidelines for that matter. Under normal circumstances, and I hope I am wrong, a donation is supposed to be something modest that you give out. But why should the government donate to government? Why should a minister or a president carry money to donate to a school 100 million for where I would have simply made an allocation that goes through the proper channels and they enter through the procurement processes and you minimize wastage? Because now, if you carry money cash in a sack like this and you hand over, how sure are you that money can be properly utilized? But also, some villages like mine, where I come from in Rushiga, if you are not happy to have a minister or a person who is entitled to that budget, when will we ever benefit? So this whole budget of donations, which is growing, is also going to create another round of inequality. We're already suffering from so much inequality. We are now, so now if I have a budget of 50, like the one that these people have at Parliament, and I am in a key position up there, it means that now almost all the villages, including sub-villages, they can even access a billion.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick, and thank you, our viewers. We will go for a short break. We are still looking at the 72 trillion ambitious budget, and questions are rotating around how it will be financed and how effectiveness could be the government and its departments in handling the funds, the small funds that would be corrected. My name is Prince Apollo. Let's go for a quick break. When we return, I see Richard Baguma is itching to respond to Patrick, but also Jane is ready also to give us her last final shot on this issue of the budget. We go for a break, return after a very short while. Welcome from the break. This is The Dialogue, the big show. My name is Prince Apollo, and I have on the panel Jane Nalunga. She is the country director for Siatini. We have Richard Baguma Tinkasimire, communication expert, a very strong advocate for proper nutrition and good health. But we also have Patrick Katabazi Chichoncho, an economist, a policy analyst, but also I know him as a strong advocate on matters of social protection.
Absolutely.
Good. Our viewers, thank you so much for being part of this debate. I have been notified that Jared Wedewanzala is actually following, and he's very much, I mean, he has been intrigued by Katabazi's comments and observations that they are very interesting. He told me. Dr. Gerard, thank you so much for watching. But your viewers, you can also be part of this big show. Send in your comments and observations. Use our WhatsApp platform, or you can send in via the SMS platform. Make your comments brief, precise, and to the point. Like a gentleman here, Nangoti Peter, he says, Morning Salt TV, my worry is the revenue to fund the budget. I saw URI's projection at 31 trillion, but donations and grants only 1.4 trillion. Where are we getting other monies? It is still a big question on how this 72 trillion budget will be funded. And I get concerned if an economist like Patrick Katabazi still questions the logic and rationale behind this huge budget and the increment of more than 15 trillion in that budget. We will pick your comments. You can go on and get those comments through. Our producer, please run that line, that number, so that we get those comments. Quickly, Richard, you wanted to respond to Patrick. I don't know on which matter.
No, first I would also thank His Excellency the President. You see, there was madness that I protested more than once here, that we are looking for money, and the Minister of Finance and the Parliament passed that we reduce taxes on alcohol, excise duty on alcohol. I said this was madness. Alcohol is a harmful product. They have not increased, for the last 4 years, they have not increased any tax on tobacco.
But there was
another harmful product.
There was a new increment on imported wine.
Yeah, but you see, after the noise, we wrote directly to His Excellency the President and called the media and appealed to. You see, this is the madness that for me, I don't understand. So that's why I keep saying I need economists to help me. that you have these very harmful products to the economy, to GBV, gender-based violence, to road accidents, and you still don't want to tax that one. And then you go and tax fuel and kerosene. And that's the madness. So I want to thank His Excellency the President for standing in, returning the excise duty bill to them and saying, put on this one. That's one. But you see, the economist, and I am happy Katabazi came in. Because you see, the budget for donations was, in my view, exponentially increased. This time, every office has a budget for donation. Of course, I understand it's an election year.
Even
so this is money for campaigning.
CSR.
Yeah, whatever you call it. You can. I was saying these budget things are coached in very good English, camouflage English. You can say CSR or whatever, but this is money for free giving away. So the money, the giveaway money, was increased to hundreds of billions. I understand it's an election year. So people have to go handing over, buying, renting support. Okay, that has been our practice. We are going to continue with it. But when I was looking at that money, if you allocated 100 million to improve a primary or secondary school this year, if you put 100 million on a or government primary or secondary school, which I think would cause great infrastructure improvement, you would cover, each district would have more than 10 schools improved. Each district in this country would have more than 10 schools improved. If you put this free, the money you have given government officials to freely give away and politicians, if you put it to schools, you'd have each district have more than 10 schools. You see, that's why for me,
Richard,
that people need to understand what this free biz money can do for them.
Richard, in the same budget, there are more than 100 new seed schools, secondary schools that have been allocated money.
I can say
Plant
these
new
things.
schools.
That does not mean that you let the old schools or go to waste like they are doing. The level of so that's one. Let's welcome the 100 seed schools. Apollo, if we can write down, and on the what's the date today, 15th or something of June next year, we go and see how many seed schools actually started. Actually just started with the foundation on there. So that's another, in my view, 100, this is an empty budget promise. I'm sorry. I sound, I thank the positive, but I also. Let me tell you, Apollo, this continued unsupported figures, totally unsupported, can only sound good, but they cannot make impact on the ground. There are many provisions for the private sector which are exciting. But I can tell you that, for example, part of the money that would go through UDC would be going to an enterprise. It was a way of circumventing parliamentary refusal
Actually,
to give a particular enterprise
I
money.
also question how UDC, its impact on...
So they said now, this parliament will not allow this money to go to this enterprise. How do you do it? Give it to UDC, then UDC will pass it on. And we will be seeing this. So if you are trying to put things for the private sector, but you are going to borrow from the banks, when the government is going to borrow from the banks, because that's what they indicated, that they are going to do domestic borrowing. They have already defaulted more than once on their domestic areas. But they are going to the banks and they are attractive. I can tell you that then the private sector will have nowhere to borrow from. And so these things have to be weighed. They have to be compared. There are very good provisions, thank you very much, for the private sector in the budget. They will, a lot of them will be unfunded priorities. I don't know how something is a priority and it is unfunded, but that's the language, unfunded priority. And then you go to them, because how many trillions are they borrowing from the private banks now? I think they were saying, I don't remember, 9 trillion or something. It's targeted to get from the local banks. So where would the businesses get money from?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jen, your final comment on the budget, because we need our viewers also to look at the effectiveness of government in handling the few revenues, or the small basket we hope to collect in the next financial year, looking at what actually is happening with this renewed war on corruption. What can we expect? And that will be our next topic for discussion. Keep those messages coming in. Jen, your final comment.
Okay, thank you so much, Apollo, and thanks Mr. Katavas and Richard. Very good views coming out there. But for me, I think all these challenges we are pointing out, we want government to change. Because I think we need to learn lessons. Instead
government
of lamenting,
government to change, or to change its ways?
To change its ways,
Okay.
to change the policies. Instead of lamenting, we point out an issue. I think we need solutions. There are challenges, for example, I'm happy, like Patrick and Richard have said, their money is going directly to the people. Like for the women, there is the GROW project, there is initiative, so
Skilling Uganda.
skilling and all that, But I think we need people, even women, some women don't know how to access it and all that. It is good to do a carry and all that, but the access and the way it's going to be utilized. But what I want to say, one is that maybe we are expecting too much from our members of parliament. The caliber, even the way they are too many, I think we need to rethink that, the caliber of parliament, the numbers, and is it a necessary expense or not? And I think Ugandans, we should pronounce ourselves on that, because it goes back to the issue of how are we using our money, our little money. Because when you look at this money, the money going directly for development is very little. Because if you remove the money for paying the loans, you remove the money for the wages, those obligations, there is very little money for actual development. That means we need to use it very, very well. That's when we need to look at where are we spending our money. Should it go to donations? Should it go to buying medals? Should it go? So we need to rethink, like at household level, when the money is tight, you tell somebody, don't buy 3 kilos of meat, buy 1. So this is where we need to be. But what I liked about the budget is that it came out clearly what are the drivers of the economy, and there were 3 of them. And I liked that we need to be clear about the drivers: agro-industrialization, tourism,
services, and ICT
development. But as we move on, we need to clarify that these are the drivers, these are the enablers, and be able to put resources where the drivers are, which we haven't done in this budget. When you look at the budget for agro-industrialization, in the budget framework papers it was 1.6, now I think they have increased to 1.7 or 1.8
trillion.
But it's still very little. Where is that money going to ensure that if this is the driver of our economy, and we need to put resources there. If tourism is the driver, we need to put resources there, but we need to be clear where they are, where those resources are going. Just one point. For example, like now tea is having so many challenges. Too many people are uprooting tea, and that will affect the performance of the economy. Nothing was said about it. On coffee, we are having a challenge of coffee because of the directives coming from EU on the issue of climate change. We need to show that we are not hurting the economy. The directive is clear. If you don't show that, don't bring your products. In fact, EU is now imposing a carbon tax on so many products. So we need to think that if coffee is our cash cow, how do we protect it?
Thank you.
And how do we add value to our coffee?
I think there are some billions that have been put in coffee development.
I saw that money. We won't go into details, but it's not enough, by the way. It's not enough. Yes, coffee is our cash cow.
Thank you, Jane. And finally from you, Patrick.
There was a question about where is the government going to get all this money. We have 32 trillion that is expected to come from Uganda Revenue Authority. Take note that the projections for this year ending this month were at 29, and so far we are 27 trillion. We still have a shortfall of 1.9 trillion, like I said. So the question of the day is, are we going to be in position to raise the money? Then we have budget support. Budget support has been dwindling, and it is going to be at 1.3 trillion. Then we are going to borrow from the banks, I think 8.9 trillion. We are going to have a debt rollover of 19.8 trillion, and we are also going to have project support. This is money that we expect from projects that government of Uganda signed on with donors in the form of loans and grants, which is also going to be about 8 trillion. When you add all those heads together, it is what comes to 72 trillion. So the roadmap for collection of resources to finance the budgets were clearly elaborated in the budget. But the question of the day is, we have never had a leap, a very huge jump
like
really
we
in
had
the budget.
this time.
We've always been having an additional 2 trillion for maximum has been, I think, 4 trillion from year to year. Now what we are having is 18 trillion, which is a very, very big jump. And we are yet to see whether the expected sources of income will materialize. Good. And I hope they do, because if they don't, it means that the fundamentals that have been inbuilt in the budget will certainly not bring us the results that the minister was projecting to us. I like the point made by Richard that yes, private sector, there are some bits of it in private sector that were read in the budget, but we are afraid that the jump from of domestic borrowing from 4 trillion to
to 9.
to double, 8, to more than double, actually, is a big risk because that potentially crowds out private sector development and increases
In
interest
access
rates.
to money, to capital.
Yes. The president tries to circumvent that message by saying, for you who are into importation, you can go and keep with your commercial banks. And that you guys who are going to be into innovation and manufacturing in our local raw materials, then we are putting provisions for you in circles, in UDC, in UDB, in small scale and medium scale recovery funds, ABCD. I think because you're also aware that the cost of capital in Uganda is one of the highest in the world. And in fact, where you normally see some success stories of foreigners who come to invest in Uganda, it is largely that some of them come with cheap capital. You get a loan from your country at almost zero interest rate, and you come to invest and compete with a Ugandan who is going to get a loan at 27%.
Yet you have other packages of
And that loan is required to
Cheap
be
labor.
to be paid immediately. Uganda is such a country that does not have long-term capital products. Like where you find the payment period there's a larger grace period and the interest is low. So all of those at the end of the day undermine private sector growth. And if government cannot balance the appetite for domestic borrowing with the and concessional and non-concessional, if there is no delicate balance between those three things.
I have heard His Excellency the President actually recently talk about introducing a law to help people access money easily, and actually on money lending institutions, money lenders.
Yes, the president is
He's
said,
very optimistic.
has often said
sooner,
that the
people will
interest
have
rate for
access
money
to cheap
lenders
capital.
is high, but he's talking about money lending outside the financial institutions.
Absolutely.
He's talking about Richard, a money lender, and that they are charging excessive interest. The UMRA Act, as a matter of fact, has some provisions, although it does not come out specifically to indicate the minimum and the maximum. But what we need to be, of course, if you suffocate formal money lending, then you are going to create a bigger problem
Black market money lending.
of the black market
course.
money lending, because a person who leaves the bank and a circle to go to a private money lender has a problem whose solution does not lie outside the formal systems, and therefore is a desperate person who is willing to actually say that he has sold land, even when he is presenting land as a collateral. That's the level of desperation that is usually at that stage. So for me, interest rates that we see are driven by many factors, including the risk associated with lending a certain category of people. So it increases the risk, the interest, so that if you're lending to 100 people and 50 people default, you can still stay in the market with the 50. So that makes the interest rate extremely high. Number two, the cost of money. You also could have borrowed the money in order to do business with it. You're also getting it at the higher interest. Therefore, in order to make business sense from your business, then you have to also add an additional interest and it becomes high.
Thank you.
So as long as the fundamentals are not corrected, legislating business relationships in that manner will end up being counterproductive, leading to black markets, as my colleague has said.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Patrick. Thank you so much, our viewers. We need to close this one and be hopeful that the budget will work out for all
Absolutely.
of us.
That's our hope and prayer.
We can only pray that it works out for
That's our
all of
hope and
us.
prayer.
I can see a message here. Hello, this is Tumsime Adro, and he says thanks for the program. thanks for hosting those gentlemen and lady. Okay, we also appreciate you out there. Gentlemen, let's now quickly turn to how effective can our government be with the little revenues we hope to collect and to mobilize. And I will also be looking at the renewed war on corruption, the renewed efforts that we have been seeing. We have now 2 members of parliament who are in prison for allegedly being involved in corruption. We have very many operations now going around. It looks like government is cracking a whip on the corrupt individuals in this community. And I don't know, Richard, you will take the first shot in this, because we witnessed a drama yesterday at the anti-corruption court when Paul Akamba, the honorable, was granted bail, and then he was immediately rearrested. You can feel that there is so much vigor, so much power behind possibly this case of corruption. Are you convinced, Richard, that this time around, this renewed effort will yield something positive?
We'll talk about the larger picture, but I think if you take the particular incident that you have referred to, it's not the first time that this is happening. Court grants bail and it's invaded. So that looked like a corrupt act to me. So when you're fighting corruption with corrupt means, I'm not sure. That looked like a corrupt act. But it's not, this one has been done on all politics. It looked more like a political thing. It has been done on different people previously. It's the plain clothes guys, some of them, as usual, putting on slippers or something, and coking guns. That was the situation. But we have seen that previously. So there's politics there, in my view. First of all, I think it would be wrong for us, some of us who have been calling for some kind of movement on the corruption fight. And then the person you have been appealing to, and I saw the members of parliament, he said, I want to do amnesty. They said, no, we want blood. Now the blood is in their midst. Yeah, so you can't fail to say, okay, we must now hail this one. Yes, we have been saying, oh, you are doing nothing, you are not biting. Now, okay, says now let me bite. So I think it would not be right that we dismiss that. No, I think it would be right to say this is happening, this is what has been called for, and one thinks that it will take shape. And do like that. So that's the first one. The second thing, I can also say that the onslaught on Parliament did not start with the 3. I think it's wrong to say that. We have seen the onslaught on the Speaker, we have seen the onslaught on the institution of Parliament through money handouts, through, calls to, I don't know, wherever, to meetings in Chankwanzi, to attempts to say you cannot bring a private member's bill until our caucus is cleaned. We have been seeing these very, very powerful, very sustained attempts to subdue and capture Parliament. And I can say with very strong conviction that a raft of constitutional amendments related to 2026 and the calculations beyond, we are going to see them now come, because Parliament is getting on its knees and it will not resist some of these not necessarily very progressive amendments that will come. We will see them coming now, and Parliament will pass them. So one is, you cannot say, you cannot hail this person for doing what he's doing. That's what you wanted him to do. But as clever and very astute as he is, he also now gets an opportunity, in my view, to do the difficult constitutional amendments that would come and would be resisted by Parliament if it was not on its knees. And so the stick, it's now a bigger stick to wield against members of Parliament, but also be carrot. The carrot means will continue. The pain must be managed. So a few infusions from the donations budgets. Now they have passed very big donation budgets. Infusions will come their way. And I think we will see the realignment of politics, particularly because of biology, taking shape now.
The big question is anything going to change? Meaning times in
No, nothing fundamentally for me. Nothing fundamentally is going to change because the bigger picture, the superstructure is the same. The superstructure is the same. The forces that are playing are the same. The players that are playing are the same, and the plan for continuity is the same. So these are rearrangements to ensure that the superstructure continues in place.
That is more like what you said about the Mabati case.
But what did I say and what happened?
Okay.
Remember, I said these things, I predict them, we bring a tape and we play it, and I get challenged many months or a year after.
Are we not going to see more blood being shed and
If the
the
blood
axe falling?
You see, the blood can only be shed as long as it plays into maintaining this infrastructure, the superstructure, into planning for the biological transition that must happen, and into bringing Parliament into line to make sure that the constitutional amendments that are coming, I am convinced that they go through with very little resistance.
I wait to look at
You
those
will have these
constitutional
recordings here
amendments.
as usual, like I say.
Okay, he says, good morning, Apollo and the team. What intrigues my mind is whether we are presented with the correct statistics. He is talking about the budget. For example, I saw the minister saying PDM has created over 2.5 million jobs in the first year. But I visited the PDM secretariat. There is any credible data source you can rely on, apart from the data on the number of money recipients. Without sounding like an American Republican, I believe it's more impactful to support existing enterprises and promising startups than disbursing money to villagers. If I was a policymaker, instead of giving 1.05 trillion to PDM and giving 30 billion to UDB, I would do the opposite. Thank you so much, Dr. Jared Wanzara. He's watching, and we really treasure your comments and contributions. Let me also, okay, I'll read those messages later. Keep those messages coming in. We are now looking at the new efforts that are being put into fighting corruption. His Excellency the President, I would like to quote his own words from the State of the Nation address. President Museveni sounded very committed on the issue of corruption, and he was talking tough about the corrupt. Corruption is a disruptor in wealth creation, and it will be crushed. Who do those people, the corrupt, think they are? We are going to smash you. We have the capacity. Because I don't concentrate on those things myself, but now they don't listen, you have now attracted our full attention, and you will see. Patrick Katabazi, what do you make of the new effort in corruption?
The president's stance and the words spoken are welcome. And sometimes you need to hear what somebody thinks on the matter. And you can only do that by hearing somebody's position. And of course, the president's position on these matters has been changing. He has espoused views to say that if people are investing in Uganda, you know, that certainly is fine. Also, on that day on the State of Nation, he said that if we take on everybody, there was not going to be anybody who is left to work with. So, but by and large, as a country, it is very important to have a firm position on corruption. I'm afraid, though, that the war on corruption is a very sophisticated war that can be misunderstood, and to some very extent can pit the corrupt against the so-called frustrators. So you see in a war like this, you sometimes end up seeing people who are arraigned in court are the people who complained against corruption, as opposed to those who are actually complained against because of the power to suffocate people from speaking. That is why some people know what is going on and they fear to speak because they don't have power to survive beyond the day they would have made a report or blew the whistle. So for me, that's a very significant point. The second point is that we must have a clear-cut strategy of dealing with the issue without creating unnecessary drama. I saw the case of the 3 MPs. I mean, people are very excited that, you know, government is now stamping its feet. The president's statements are going to be are being implemented. A member of parliament is given bail shortly after he is rearrested and taken to unknown places. That is very dangerous for the fight against corruption. Because now the story in the public domain is going to change. From corruption into unconstitutionalism, rights, liberty, and illegal conduct, paramilitary. And if you have attended court, when they are giving bail, they will say the bail application is allowed. The suspect is now free to go and keep reporting to court as and when he or she is required, unless he is being held or he has other charges. So if, for example, you don't want somebody released because he has other charges, why at the presentation of bail, for example, why don't you communicate to court that, by the way, even when you have found his bail application proper, but he won't go because there's another indictment that is here? Why do you have to get plainclothes people and then... So I'm echoing these words because the Uganda Law Society has issued a statement and I'm a member, so I'm bound by their position at this point. And I want to say that acts of that nature undermine. I know some people say, yes, get the same medicine.
I thought that would actually send a message.
No, it does not. You cannot create a wrong with a wrong. Because guess what? The message has been very clear and people had warmly received it. Now, the newspapers, the human rights activists, now, the international community now, the focus now is going to be on the habitual acts. And you have lost the message, that's number one. And possibly you have started now diverting your own attention into responding to this as opposed to keeping the eye on the ball.
Okay.
And I think for me, if we need to have an institutionalized process, we give capacity to the investigators, we give capacity to the courts to be able to dispense justice in a very, very, very fast and efficient manner, but also that one that respects rights. Because I mean, today, because like I've told you, a person is presumed innocent until proven guilty. That is a standard.
I hope, Patrick, you listened to the president.
No, that is a standard.
Wait a minute. His post-budget speech, in which he actually talked about bail, that for him, he prefers, he called it traditional...
Quick trials.
Quick trial, and he's
Yes.
opposed to bail.
Yes,
and it's
guarantee.
not the first time he's talking about, speaking against bail.
Yes, guarantee, provide budget. No,
trials.
provide budget to the investigators, right? Give them terms and conditions that before you take somebody to court, you have evidence ready to proceed. If you take him on Friday, you have evidence ready to proceed on what? On Monday. Give capacity to courts. Have adequate staff and operational funds, so that when now they say the file is ready and the trial is going to start on Monday, they have enough staff and they have enough resources. So they take you to court on Friday. They take you to court on Friday. they produce you on Monday, they start bringing witness 1 week, the second week, you present your defense, third week, judgment. If you're guilty, of course you know. If you're not, you go home. Bail in those circumstances will not be necessary.
My final.
How would you then challenge bail where a simple trial is going to last for 5 years? And ultimately, the court is going to come up and say, we have not found credible evidence, this person is free. And he has spent 5 years in jail. So remand, as a matter of fact, is not a sentence. It is simply a custodial arrangement where they say we are not sure on whether this guy is going to be there or is going to find it easy to come to court. We are keeping him for that purpose. So the bail application is mainly to assess whether you're this kind of person who can easily respond whenever you are invited. So now, instead of being kept in their custody, in the government custody, then now the prison is where? Is at your home. Because you're still bound by the law even when you're at home.
By the bail terms.
It's by the bail terms and the law when you're at home. So remand has never been prison.
Okay.
And it should be treated as such. Prison, in my view, would be when you have been sentenced and it is known legally that that's where you're going to be for a period of time. But you cannot have in a system like ours where a simple case takes 5 years, 10 years, and you want to say, how many, you've had reports where somebody has committed an offense, maximum sentence is 2 years, but they have spent 4 years in jail, on remand, because he has not seen a magistrate. So we can also not allow a country to be like that, and we think that is normal.
But despite these distortions or these illegalities being committed, do you think this renewed effort may yield anything?
No, if they were serious about the members of parliament, the president has, let them call accounting officers in a confidence one by one. They will get all the corrupt MPs and put them there. Because that's how they solicit bribes. And some of them have evidence. Some of them have cameras in their parking lots and in their offices. Let them interface with the, and also, especially on the public accountability committees during the time of their interface with Auditor General's reports, and also during the budget process. Let them interface with accounting officers.
Thank you so much,
You'll find it
Patrick.
so easy.
This is Mujuni Roland, and he said thank you so much for the program. I liked submissions from Patrick, and he says say hi to Richard and Jen. Okay, thank you so much, Roland. And, you didn't tell us where you're watching from. And Jen, quickly, what do you think about the renewed war on corruption? Now seems like the president is fully committed, and again, the recent incidents, I think, tells us of the level of corruption in Uganda, where MPs can sit with the chairperson of the Uganda Human Rights Commission and negotiate a commission of department's budget.
Thank you so much, Apollo.
At least that evidence has been is public now.
Thank you, Apollo. I applaud the president for at least coming out clearly, and also for touching the so-called untouchables. You know, for me that's a clear message to the country. However, for me, I think corruption in Uganda has become a cancer. And like a cancer in a body, it has gone throughout. You can't know which nerves and organs which are affected, but there are so many. And there is this level of impunity, level of entitlement, you know, level of rot everywhere. To the extent that I have a friend who was doing research, went to a certain ministry to get some documents. And he got the documents easily. He comes back to his bosses, says, I have got these documents. And the boss asks her, how much did you pay? Said, I got it for free. Said, there's a problem. What did you pay? You know, there's a lot of rot in the police, Chintu Chidogo, in hospitals. They tell us, we hear rumors when they are making roads. One layer goes where another one goes. I don't know whether it's true or not. But this is the cancer of how far we have gone. So when we are talking about corruption, which has become a culture, we need to look at strategies of changing that culture. I'll give you an example. These days, even our lifestyle, we aspire to get things which we can't have. Cars. Somebody gets out of university today. He wants a huge car like yesterday. He wants a shirt like which Mr. Baguma puts on. But Mr. Baguma has been working for donkey years. But first he wants it today. Sits in a chair in an office. Says I will have to get that money. So for me, I think we need to look at the issue of corruption in its entirety and then have strategies of how to be able to uproot this cancer. It's a culture in churches, everywhere. It's there.
The strategy now is start with the big guys, the big boys. Members of parliament.
There are so many ways of skinning a cat, but we need to look at broader, because for me my worry is that people are now concentrating on the big fish, which is okay. Let us start. It's a start, but it shouldn't be the end. And we need a mindset change when it comes to corruption. We need an entire lifestyle change to know that if you want to have a good life, have work for it. Work, decent work, honest work, you know, but we don't have it today here. So it's, for me, it is a really big battle if we are to weed out the cancer of corruption, even in our minds, even in the way we look at it. Because most people, we are no longer shocked. We don't care. You know, somebody says there was a billion, they found a billion, says, those people, so we continue. Next time, we'll find that member of parliament seated in front of church, everybody is
and the voters will vote her or him into
because
office
him
again.
or her is dishing out money. We don't isolate people who have stolen our money. And we have seen people defending their own. Yeah, she's ours, he's ours, you know, because that money is coming back. So even the attitude towards corruption. So I agree, things have started, but it's a bigger battle. It's a war. This is just one battle. You know, when you are fighting, we need to separate, battles and the big war. So we need to be able to see those battles, those front lines where we can.
In your experience as a Ugandan who has been, following what is happening, do you think this renewed war will yield results?
Yeah, it will. It will. I think we need to be optimistic. We need to be optimistic. And for me, when they touch on those people, somebody was saying that some members of parliament didn't even attend the budget reading. They were in hiding. That's a plus, you know. And somebody will think twice. Even those the smaller fish, the mukenes and all that, who are doing bad things, they will think that maybe let me rethink what I'm doing. So it's a battle. It has started, but if we are to win the war, a lot needs to be done, and let us not leave it to the president, church leaders, in education system. It has to be part of that.
Thank you so much, Jen. And Andrew in Mkono says corruption starts at plot. This, and he says until we uproot it from the stamp is like,
But you see, you see, Apollo, corruption is a two-way. The giver and the one
taker.
giving and the taker.
All the receiver.
All of us. So we shouldn't be pointing, so and this whatever. But you are the one who got hospital and say, you know, if you don't give anything chidogo, you won't get medicine. But sometimes they don't want that money, you know. And I remember one time a doctor friend of mine was telling me that I felt so abused for somebody to come and say, here, you know. It's also, it's a two-way, and we need also, all of us, let us check ourselves.
all right, many messages coming in, but most of them are really appreciating our show. But unfortunately, we have only 3 minutes for this show to end. Richard, your concluding remarks on this show.
As long as God gives us life, we are here. This is our country. Some of us may go to exile for whatever reasons, or go away for cheyo, or I mean, those reasons. But the majority of us are here. This is our country. We cannot be a hopeless zombie population. No, we have to be optimistic. But optimism without action, I think, will not help us much. I think we need to do actions that that tell those who are with impunity, that Jen was talking about, excessive, and that tell them that there are consequences from the population. I think we have been too meek,
Docile.
too docile.
You're speaking like President Museveni,
Yeah.
who said they've now attracted his attention.
Yeah, I am very careful that he's been my president for 4 decades, and I keep telling you that it is the man I've been putting my sense on. Yeah, I've not taken away my sense of him. But when when he said now I have got information, no, if somebody has information in this country, synthesized, rechecked, it's President Museveni. Yeah, so that's why I was telling even the last time, I said, when he says now I have, then I start doubting the now. The now creates doubt in me that previously you didn't have, honestly. So this is our country, but we have to, what can I say, embedded fear to even say the basic things. I think we must fight it and reverse it.
Patrick, your concluding remarks?
Yes, I wish to say that the budget presents opportunities for some categories of people. Of course, you know, the men in uniform,
Have the people in Richiga received
those
received PDM cash and the Milga funds?
Yes, they have, in many respects. The people in uniform, especially rural ranks, got a salary increment. I think that is very good for them. The women GLOW project and the Invite project, there's some money in there. So for those, I mean, it's going to be a very good budget. There are some regions. Bunyoro was, in my view, the biggest beneficiary of the budget. I don't know whether that relates to them having the minister in there. They have a university now. They have the stadium. They have all these roads, beautiful roads there.
And an airport now.
Yes, we hope that maybe Kigezi in the next budget it will also shine. And for my people in Ruchiga, let the problems happening in Parliament don't worry you. This Parliament has a few years left, and we shall have time to come and correct some of these mistakes. God bless you.
Thank you so much.
That's a powerful message.
Patrick is joining the fray.
Thank you so much, our viewers. Jen Nalonga makes a compliment there.
Yay! I'm very happy for Patrick because I have already raised the issue of the caliber.
Yes.
But don't maintain that caliber, okay? Yeah, we are ourselves.
The superstructure will swallow him. Let him come. The superstructure will swallow him. Let him come.
I know Patrick is stronger than
Viewers,
that.
I must appreciate you for being a great audience. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for those comments and observations. I must thank Patrick Katabazi and Katabazi Choncho is a man from Ruchiga. Richard Tinkasimile, thank you so much. Jedi Nalunga, thank you so much. It's a pleasure having you on the show today. But we will meet again in the same location next Saturday. My name is Prince Apollo. God bless Uganda. Let's remain hopeful, and God bless you all. Good afternoon.